I was standing in our conference room on the 13th floor, smoothing out a client proposal while Blythe laughed too loud in the hallway. I knew that laugh. It was the one she saved for people who could boost her. I'm Harlan. I'm 58 now. But this all started when I was 42, still dumb enough to believe loyalty meant something inside a marriage. Quick note. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. And let's continue. Blythe and I ran a boutique brand studio in downtown Chicago. On the surface, we looked like one of those power couples you see in glossy pitch decks. Blythe was the vision, the sparkle, the face. I was the engine. No applause. Just the guy making sure everything ran. She was 43 then, still had clients eating out of her hand with that polished charm. She could walk into a pitch room and make an investor feel like the next Steve Jobs. And me? I was fixing budgets, chasing late invoices, putting out client fires with a smile nobody remembered 5 minutes later. We weren't equals, not really. I owned 51% of the LLC, not because I was trying to control her, but because someone had to have final say when things got ugly. I'd seen what happened when no one did. Blythe didn't crave love, she craved attention. The room, the spotlight, the praise. It fed her like air. At first I thought that was just how she was built. But later I realized she couldn't stand not being the main character, even in her own marriage. Over the last year and a half, something shifted. Every time I kept things on track, she treated it like I was dragging her down. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was the killjoy who made sure payroll got met. Her family didn't help. Daphne, her mother, ran that whole circus with fake politeness and real pressure. Her sister Marla could kill a compliment mid-sentence with one of those smirks. Gavin, Marla's husband, looked at every relationship like it was a stock he might have to dump. Our office manager, Janine, was just as bad. She smiled like she worked for both of us, but she fed Blythe whatever gossip kept her on top that week. I knew we were slipping. I didn't know how far. Not yet. That day in the conference room, I saw Blythe pull Kieran into her office. Young intern, fresh smile. Eyes locked on her like she was a screen he didn't want to blink away from. I didn't think much of it then. I just closed the folder, straightened the edge of the table, and went to handle a client call Blythe had already forgotten about. The host barely got out right this way before Blythe cut in to say, "Table 22, please." Like always, she had a preference and expected the world to read her mind. It was one of those wood-paneled places in River North. Quiet enough that you could hear steak knives hit the plate. And everyone wore the same strained smile like they'd rather be somewhere else. Blythe loved that kind of setting. Prestige without attention, privacy without humility. She opened with harmless chatter. "Traffic was brutal on Wacker," she said, sipping her wine. "Valet almost dinged my bumper." Then a bit about a client's aura. "He's got this incredible energy, don't you think?" I nodded because I knew better than to say what I really thought. She talked about some gala invite from a foundation I'd never heard of. Nothing important, just noise. Then, with perfect posture and a polite smile, she set her glass down. Not a clink, a placement. Like she was calling time on a pitch meeting. "I think we should separate," she said. I blinked once. "You mean take space, or—" "No," she cut in. "I mean it's time. I've felt it for a while. We're not us anymore." My fingers curled under the linen napkin in my lap, but I didn't move. "What changed?" She took a breath like she was explaining a concept I might struggle to understand. "There's no spark, Harlan. You know it too." A spark. Like this was a casual fling we'd outgrown, not a full company, payroll, lease, legal structure, and 2 decades of intertwined work. Then she gave me the name like it was just another agenda item. "Kieran Vale. You know him." I stared at her. Not in shock, just to buy a second. "The intern?" She tilted her head. "He's more than that. No guilt, no shame. Just that smile she gave investors when she was pitching a strategic pivot." "And you've been seeing him?" "Yes," she said plainly. "It wasn't planned, but it's real." I nodded once. My heart was racing, but I kept my voice even. "So what exactly are you asking for?" She folded her hands on the table like she was hosting a seminar. "We separate. We keep it civil. You stay involved where it makes sense. We don't need lawyers or drama. This can be clean." Then came the insult package, tied up in silk. "You're all process, Harlan. You don't see me. You've turned our whole life into a checklist." I let her talk. Every sentence just confirmed who she'd decided to be. She thought calm meant I'd roll over. I smiled. Not with warmth, with calculation. The kind of smile you give when you've spotted the weak point in a foundation and know exactly where to apply pressure. "Civil works," I said. "That's smart." I waved for the check, paid my half, and stood up like I wasn't carrying a wire sparking inside my chest. Outside, I stepped into the cold night, pulled out my phone, and texted one person, Corinne. I didn't go home and rage like some movie cliché. No broken glass, no whiskey-fueled meltdown. I just walked into the kitchen, kicked off my shoes, and opened my laptop. There was no panic, just math. I started listing out what Blythe actually managed versus what she just performed. Presentation flow? That was mine. Contract language? Mine. Vendor relationships? Mine. The fancy brand voice she loved parroting? I'd built it in a spreadsheet before she ever touched it. Then my phone buzzed. And buzzed again. And again. Group chat notifications. Daphne's family circle. The one I never contributed to but always stayed in, out of some old sense of politeness. They hadn't removed me, they just forgot. Like I was already deleted from the family plan. The messages weren't sad. Nobody was confused or concerned. They were celebrating. Daphne had written, "Our girl deserves joy." Marla followed up with a flood of clapping emojis like Blythe just landed a job at Vogue. Someone I didn't even recognize said, "She's finally choosing herself." Another message, probably Gavin, called me dead weight and said Blythe was free to thrive. Then came the final insult. Kieran got added to the chat. That night. Not after papers, not after counseling, not even after a real conversation. Same night. His message? "Appreciate the warm welcome. Excited to be part of the fam." Daphne replied with "sweetheart" and said Sunday brunch was back on. Like the chair I used to sit in was already his. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't scream. I just started taking screenshots. One after another, page by page. Not for court, not for leverage. For me. For the nights I knew would come. Those moments when memory turns generous and tries to soften betrayal. I needed hard proof that the goodbye wasn't mutual. They erased me like I never mattered. Mid-screenshot, my bank app pinged. Routine update from the business account. Just enough to remind me. My name was still on everything. Signing authority, access, control. That's when my focus shifted. The heartbreak didn't leave. It just got edged out by the part of me that knew systems better than people. I picked up the phone and called Corinne Mendez. We'd been friends since we were both broke and 20-something, trying to out-hustle every suit in the loop. When she picked up, I didn't explain, didn't ramble. I just said, "We're going to activate Operation Phoenix." Corinne didn't ask for details. She already knew what it meant. While we were still on the call, I opened a shared folder we'd made a year and a half ago, back when Blythe first started talking about personal brand elevation and disappearing for lunches that weren't on the calendar. The folder was labeled Contingencies. Inside were drafts, plans, clauses, notes, everything I'd been quietly organizing while she was busy falling in love with her own spotlight. I clicked the first document, renamed it Execution_1, and hit save. Corinne didn't waste time pretending this was emotional. Her voice stayed flat, focused, like we were reviewing a contract instead of my marriage falling apart. "Is she out of the office?" she asked. "Yes," I said, already pulling up calendars. "Do you want clean or do you want loud?" "Clean," I answered without hesitation. "Good," she said. "Then we stick to structure, not feelings." That was the whole difference between me and Blythe. She reacted. I built systems that reacted for me. We'd already laid the groundwork about a year and a half earlier, back when Blythe started drifting into one of her reinvention phases. She called it growth. I called it instability with good lighting. Corinne had seen it too, and she pushed me to organize everything like the world was going to end. I opened the operating agreement while she spoke. 51-49 ownership split. My name holding control, not as leverage, but as responsibility. There was a clause buried in there that mattered now more than ever. If a partner created reputational harm, abandoned core responsibilities, or exposed the company to legal risk through workplace misconduct, dissolution could be triggered clean. Corinne walked me through it like she was reading off a blueprint. You don't need drama, you need documentation. I've got it, I said, already pulling files. Then she hit the point Blythe never bothered to understand. Your contracts, most of them are tied to you personally, key person clauses. If you step out, they don't follow the brand, they follow delivery. That landed exactly where it needed to. Blythe thought she was the business because she was the face. But clients didn't pay for a face. They paid for outcomes that didn't fall apart at the last minute. We mapped everything in plain terms. Not emotional, not symbolic, just real assets. Clients who trusted me. Work in progress tied to my timelines. Templates, pitch decks, internal systems I'd built piece by piece. Financial accounts under my control. The office lease I negotiated. And then the surface-level stuff Blythe obsessed over. The brand, the image, the social presence. I pulled call logs and calendar entries next. Time blocks labeled client strategy that didn't match any client activity. Gaps where she should have been leading and wasn't. I didn't say Kieran's name. I didn't have to. The pattern told the story cleaner than any accusation. Corinne didn't react. That's negligence, she said. That's what we use. I reached out to Silas Van after that. He was older, sharp, and didn't waste words. When I explained I might need him to reassure a couple of clients, he didn't hesitate. You're the one who delivers, he said. I'll remind them of that. That was all I needed. Then I made a short list. Not friends, not favorites. People who actually worked. Quentin Shaw, steady, direct, never late with a deliverable. Reese Calder, young, detail-focused, trained the right way because I took the time to teach it. Corinne cut in before I could get comfortable. What about your office manager? Janine? I said. She'll leak anything if she thinks it protects her, Corinne replied. Assume nothing you say stays private. That adjusted the plan immediately. No open conversations, no early moves. Everything controlled, timed, documented. This wasn't revenge. I didn't need to yell, didn't need to expose anything publicly. Chaos would have helped Blythe. She thrived in attention. What I was building didn't make noise. It made consequences. She can keep her spotlight, I said quietly. Corinne didn't respond right away. Then she said, and you're taking the structure out from under it. Exactly. I closed the agreement, opened the next file, and started outlining execution steps line by line. 3 days after that dinner, Blythe and Kieran took off for Scottsdale. She called it a reset trip in her caption, like they were celebrities bouncing back from a public spat. Photos rolled out in batches, golf course sunsets, drinks with garnishes, Kieran in rented polos looking like he finally made varsity. While she posted stories, I filed paperwork. Corinne and her paralegal, Tessa Price, moved like professionals who had done this before. We formed the new entity in under 24 hours. Clean articles, clear structure, tax ID confirmed. Accounts opened under the new name. No noise, just control. I didn't do anything dramatic. No account sweeps, no late-night withdrawals. I moved what I was legally allowed to move. Working capital tied to contracts and deliverables with my name on them. I left enough behind to cover payroll and utilities through the next billing cycle. No employees got burned on my exit. Vendors got a formal email. Boring as can be. Just a paragraph that said the old LLC was pausing all obligations due to internal partner misconduct, and future business would route through the new structure. Dry language. Heavy hit. One client called it surgical. The office lease was next. Years ago, I'd negotiated a quiet exit clause. 30 days notice, no penalties if partner conflict triggered instability. I filed the termination paperwork at 10:14 a.m. on a Tuesday. Blythe had never read that part of the lease. It wasn't creative. After that came the digital lockout. Not dramatic hacking, just process. Access revocations, password resets, ownership clarifications on pitch decks, templates, and anything we'd developed over the years. Everything was traceable, defensible, airtight. Anyone trying to use it without clearance would hit a legal wall fast. Quentin met me for coffee on the west side. We sat outside under a heater, steam coming off our cups. He leaned back and asked, "Are you building something real or just escaping the mess?" I didn't hesitate. "I'm building." He nodded. Then I'm in. Back at the office, Reese was already at work backing up files. Everything organized by client, project type, delivery stage. I'd trained Reese on protocol for months, assuming nobody else would take it seriously. Now it was paying off. No files went missing, no gray areas. That afternoon, Reese pulled me aside. "Kieran's been asking questions," he said. "Real specific ones. About where you keep the final process docs, the ones you never put in shared folders." That told me everything I needed to know. Blythe hadn't just moved on. She thought she could take the engine with her. So I gave her what she wanted, at least on paper. In the separation draft, I let her keep the name, the social accounts, the polished website, all the brand-facing assets she treated like gold. I labeled it generous in the memo. Corinne called it strategic. What Blythe didn't catch was the attached liability. Those assets carried ad commitments, unpaid sponsorship invoices, and 3 vendor guarantees Blythe had personally signed during her big growth push, all included in the separation terms. All re-acknowledged by her, in writing, without a single question. Because she didn't read the fine print. She trusted her image more than the numbers, and that's why I knew exactly how this story was going to turn. I emailed the final draft to Corinne and hit send. I didn't scroll their trip like some jilted ex. I saw it the way most people do now, by accident. Public posts, tagged locations, auto-played videos. They wanted eyes on them, and the algorithm delivered. Photos of Blythe in desert light doing that effortless pose she practiced like a second job. Kieran behind her in sunglasses too big for his face, holding cocktails he probably didn't pay for. Every caption screamed curated freedom, reset, grateful, new energy. While they played pretend in Scottsdale, the real world kept moving. Janine left me a voicemail that started all business and ended close to unraveling. "Hey Harlan, just flagging a couple issues. Looks like the vendor payments didn't go through this morning. Also got a notice from the printer lease company. Oh, and Klaus Bauer's team called asking why Blythe hasn't responded for 2 days. I didn't know what to tell them." She paused, then added, "I'll try her again." She was trying to sound composed, but I could hear it, the crack under her voice. Not worry for Blythe, worry for herself. At the same time, my phone started lighting up with bank alerts. Declined transactions on the old corporate card, resort charges, spa bills, even a boutique furniture deposit. All blocked. Blythe was still living like nothing had changed, still spending like I was back home holding the checkbook. Then Kieran posted a shot from some rooftop steakhouse. Caption said, "Leveling up." Next to his fork, plain as day, was a laptop with one of our client decks open on the screen. Reese sent it to me with a single message. "You seeing this?" I didn't need to be mad. I needed to be thorough. I logged the incident, saved the image, and sent it to Corinne with a note. Unauthorized transport of IP. Her reply came back 30 seconds later. Logged as compliance violation. No further action yet. That was the difference between our camps. They were playing lifestyle theater. We were building for what came next. Klaus Bauer called me directly. The man didn't waste time. "Are you still the one delivering?" he asked. "Yes." "Then I'm staying." Click. That was the whole conversation. Later, Nadine Holt reached out. She didn't want gossip. She wanted stability. "I just need to know there's a plan," she said. "There is," I told her. "Clear steps, no disruptions. We'll deliver what's already promised and then roll clean into new terms." "Good," she said. "I don't care about drama. I care about continuity." I could have hugged her for that. Meanwhile, word got to Silas Van that Blythe was telling people I'd panicked and drained the accounts out of spite. Silas didn't yell or threaten anyone. He just made a few quiet calls. Reminded the right people who built the timelines, who showed up for the work, who never missed a single milestone. And Blythe? She kept ghosting office calls like they were spam. She was too busy basking in applause to notice the room was going quiet. The first time she realized something was off didn't come from me or Corinne or the office. It came from the resort front desk when her card declined during an upgrade moment. Janine told me that part later. "She called me in a panic," Janine said, her voice low. "Said the card wasn't working and asked me to fix it from the inside. Like she still had that kind of pull." I didn't respond. I just forwarded the compliance screenshot to Tessa Price with one instruction. Archive under travel incident. Include timestamp. I didn't need to be at O'Hare. The play-by-play came in before they even left baggage claim. Janine left me 2 voice messages, her voice a notch above whisper like she was scared someone might hear her being honest for once. "They're back," she said. "I think something's off." She looks rattled. Vendor emails piling up. Lease warnings came in. Oh, and Reese said the fob didn't work this morning. The building posted a notice. Reese texted me next. Just 3 lines. "They're locked out. Blythe's trying to talk her way in. Kieran's panicking." Then came the third source, someone I hadn't spoken to in months, a mutual acquaintance who just happened to be at the terminal. "Dude," he wrote, "saw your ex arguing with some kid in arrivals. Loud, public, ugly." That was the beginning of the collapse. Not a bang, just a slow, steady unwind. When they got back to the city, the auto payments bounced. The vendors who'd been patient stopped pretending. Emails came in with subject lines like, "Final reminder," and "Escalation timeline." The building manager didn't wait either. They posted formal notice, restricted access until past due balances were resolved. Blythe tried to use her key fob like sheer confidence could override financial policy. Quentin called me later. "She stood there like it was some mix-up," he said. "Tried to negotiate with the guy at the front desk like she was checking into a hotel." "And Kieran?" I asked. "Kept whispering, 'Just call Harlan.'" Quentin laughed once. "He knows who kept the lights on." Blythe didn't call. Of course she didn't. Calling me meant admitting she bet wrong. Daphne's family turned fast. The same people who toasted her freedom started using words like unfortunate and unexpected challenges. Gavin, the numbers man, switched into PR mode. "I really can't get involved," he told someone. I heard that through Reese. "It's between them." Marla tried a sneakier route. She messaged Reese looking for intel, and when that didn't work, she called me twice in a row. No voicemail, just pure hope I'd still play the role of useful ex. I didn't answer. Janine, always sniffing for survival, flipped her tune. She cornered Quentin in the hallway and said, "I always worried Blythe was making unstable choices." He told me about it later. "I didn't push," he said, just nodded. "Smart," I told him. "Her loyalty's for rent." A day later, Blythe tried to rally the troops. She called some of the staff to a nearby coffee shop. No conference room, just caffeine and desperation. Reese went, out of curiosity more than anything. She gave this little speech, Reese told me. Said we'd bounce back, that vision mattered more than structure. Tried to sound inspiring. And? People weren't angry, they were scared, Reese said. And fear doesn't clap. Then came the moment she couldn't spin. One of our biggest clients, 6 figures annually, told her directly and in writing that they were moving forward with my new company. No big emotion. Just a clean sentence and a dotted line. That was it. That was the sound of the foundation giving out under her feet. I screenshotted the email and archived it. Then I sent a calendar invite to Quentin and Reese for a Monday morning kickoff. The text came 2 days after her key client jumped ship. Just 6 words. We need to talk like adults. No apology, no context. Just that tone people use when they've lost something and think you're dumb enough to help them get it back. I picked the place, an old diner off Wells, the kind with laminated menus and fluorescent lights that don't flatter anyone. Public enough to keep things civil, boring enough she couldn't stage a scene. She walked in 10 minutes late, dressed like she was auditioning for a second chance. Clean white blazer, glossy nails, hair blown out to perfection. But her eyes gave her away. No shimmer could hide how tired she looked. Not physically, deep tired. The kind that hits when the world stops clapping. I didn't stand. I didn't smile. I just nodded toward the other side of the booth. She slid in without saying hi and started swinging fast. You sabotaged me, Harlan. You destroyed what we built together. I let her keep going. You humiliated me in front of clients. You stole contracts, team members, resources. I stirred my coffee while she listed her injuries. You embarrassed me. I built that brand. You hijacked it. I waited for the pause, and when it came, I reached into my jacket, pulled out my phone, and slid it across the table. The screen showed a screenshot from Daphne's group chat, the one where Marla posted clapping emojis and Kieran thanked everyone for the warm welcome. The one where Daphne called him sweetheart and confirmed Sunday brunch like I was already dead. Blythe's face tightened. Not guilt. Calculation. That was just my family being emotional, she said. I met her eyes. That didn't look emotional. It looked coordinated. She leaned back, crossed her arms like she thought that made her harder to read. What do you want me to say? They reacted. I'm not here for an apology, I said. I'm here because you wanted something. She didn't deny it. I kept going. I didn't destroy anything. I removed myself from a structure I was holding up. You treated the foundation like decor, and when it cracked, you acted surprised. She opened her mouth, but I wasn't done. Kieran traveled with client materials. We have documentation. He accessed decks he had no rights to, and he asked about proprietary docs. Reese has timestamps. Corinne logged it all. She flinched at the name. That kid is lying. No, I said. That kid knows how to document. That's what separates loyalty from delusion. She went quiet. Then her voice shifted, softer, like she was reaching for an angle that used to work. Just help me stabilize, she said. We can coexist. You have your company, I'll have mine. We don't have to fight. I picked up my phone, stood, and dropped a 20 on the table. I'm not interested in romance, I said, and I'm not here for revenge speeches. She looked up at me like she thought I might still cave. I'm here for consequences, and they're already in motion. I walked out and kept walking. 2 months later, we flipped the lights on in a converted warehouse loft in the West Loop. No banners, no gimmicks, just clean signage, finished boards on display, and sharp people walking into a space that finally felt like mine. This wasn't about flash. It was about foundation. The team ran lean but tight. Real professionals who didn't chase attention. They earned it. We put up a few framed deliverables on the wall, passed around strong coffee instead of champagne, and let the work speak. Klaus Bauer was one of the first to walk in. He scanned the room, spotted Quentin standing beside me, and gave a nod like something had finally clicked into place. No more circus, he said quietly. Good. Nadine Holt showed up 15 minutes later with a portfolio director out of Houston, someone I didn't even know was coming. Nadine didn't waste words either. She shook my hand, leaned in, and said, I like calm operators. I almost laughed. That was the best compliment I could have gotten. Quentin moved through the room like it was a campaign trail. He greeted old contacts with confidence, answered a few softballs about the transition, and then dropped the line. I'm running operations now, he said. Full authority. Just like that, Blythe's I was the heart of the company story cracked without me saying a single word. Reese was there too. Quiet, steady, exactly how I trained him. He didn't try to impress anyone. He didn't need to. His presence alone told the story. Competence over chaos. Corinne and Tessa showed up right before the client block. They blended into the background, exactly how legal should. No drama, no posture, just clean documentation behind the new entity that left no room for dispute. Then she walked in. Blythe. No RSVP, no courtesy call. Just appeared in the doorway like this was her encore. She was dressed for a photo shoot again. Tight dress, tall heels, a look built to grab attention. I didn't stop her. I didn't acknowledge her. I didn't need to. The room handled it. A few polite nods, a couple short greetings. Then everyone turned back to the person who actually controlled delivery. The person who knew how to build timelines, fix delays, and land accounts. She tried to corner Klaus near the back wall. I didn't move. I just watched. Klaus looked right at her and said, loud enough for 3 people to hear, I work with Harlan. I don't buy performances. She smiled like it didn't bother her, but I saw the flinch. Quick, tight, instinctual. Janine called me the next morning. She was job hunting now, burned her loyalty and realized too late which side had legs. She cried in her car after the event, she said. 10 minutes, then drove off like nothing happened. I wasn't proud of that. I wasn't cruel about it. I was just done being surprised. That night ended with 3 signed letters of intent, 2 verbal confirmations, and a fresh pipeline worth more than anything Blythe ever forecasted. Her Spark story didn't go out with a bang. It just got buried under results. I walked into my new office, flipped the sign on the door, and sat down to plan the next phase. I'm not 42 anymore. Life moved forward the second I stopped carrying dead weight dressed as partnership. The new company didn't explode into the stratosphere like Blythe's pitch decks promised. It grew on real footing, client by client, word by word, deliverable by deliverable. Slower than her fantasies, faster than her reality. I built it with people who didn't need applause to show up, and I kept it lean, honest, and stable. There was no grand courtroom moment, no speech, no dramatic reveal. I didn't win because I exposed her. I won because I didn't collapse. That's it. Silence, structure, and steady hands. Those were the things that lasted. The industry noticed. Clients followed the work, not the noise. When things mattered, when budgets got tight, when investors pressed harder, they chose competence. They chose us. Blythe tried to reinvent herself a few times. I heard pieces float down the pipeline, different company names, glossy relaunches, vague partnerships that vanished as quickly as they appeared. She always sounded inspired on the branding side, but somehow the substance never held. Kieran disappeared. Last I heard, he was bouncing between freelance gigs, blaming toxic leadership for every door that didn't open. That's how it goes. Kids who chase the spark don't last when the lights flicker. He learned nothing. Maybe he never planned to. Daphne's clan never reached out. No apology, no acknowledgement. They did what old money families do when their illusions crack. They rewrote history in real time and stayed loyal to comfort. Gavin pivoted to whatever would save face. Marla stuck to silence. They never said my name again. Janine emailed me one morning about 8 months later. Subject line said, "Curious if you're hiring." The body was longer, polite, polished, asking for a chance. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted revenge, I just couldn't build anything solid with someone whose loyalty drifted with power. Weak beams break under pressure, and I wasn't putting my name on another structure with cracks baked in. The screenshots? I kept them. Tucked away in a folder I almost never open. Not to hold a grudge, not to nurse old wounds. Just to remind myself how quickly people rewrite the story when they think you won't defend the truth. Blythe gave me a gift that night at the steakhouse. She thought she was cutting ties. What she did was show her hand. She let me see the full picture, unfiltered, undeniable. It cost me years, but it gave me clarity. The best part wasn't the clients I kept, or the ones I gained. It was waking up in the morning and knowing that my steadiness, the thing she mocked, wasn't a flaw. It was the foundation, and this time, it was mine alone. Real quick, can I throw a question at you? If you've got the hype button, tap it to support the video and help it reach more people. Then please subscribe and hit like. It's one click and it matters a lot to us. And drop a comment. Good story works. Or tell me this. When someone treats your stability like it's disposable, do you cut them off clean, or do you keep carrying them until it breaks?